this, I think, is a good clip to show that Jesus seems to be crumbling under the pressure of his own mission. That he just seems to be unable to handle the emotional and the physical energy required of what he has to accomplish. And the temple scene is obviously made to be as dramatic as possible, like, throwing over tables. Also, he has like some sort of metal or pipe or something. He's just smashing bottles.
The gun.
Yeah, a gun. Okay.
Yeah.
So very dramatic. And also this scene with the leopard is quite interesting because he just seems to be totally fed up at this point. That he says he's tried for 3 years. Seems like 30. So I mean, in the Bible we see Jesus frustrated with his disciples, but we never really see him buckle under the pressure of his own mission. So this is really quite bringing an emotional character to what Jesus is doing.
Yeah, one of the contrasts that it's very obvious in the scriptures that he is really very off-put by everything that's happening in the temple. His overturning tables, those are pretty drastic things that he does. The one big difference here, which sort of teaches us a little bit about this Jesus, is that he tells everyone to leave. I don't think that happens in any of the other passages. He might overturn the tables, but he talks about this, he quotes it here. This is meant to be a temple for all nations. You made it a den of thieves. And so those passages seem to denote that, Jesus is actually trying to make room for people rather than push them out. But the next part with the lepers immediately tells us why Jesus is pushing out, because he needs the space. He's feeling the weakness, which Jesus can be weak at times, but not quite in this way. Just a few things that, you could sort of use as some argument for this. Jesus wasn't able to heal when people didn't have faith. Jesus actually did purposely take time alone to pray to God. But there's no sign that he pushed people away. The disciples often actually thought that Jesus was too overcrowded. His parents, his family, the disciples, the crowds thought that there's too many people around Jesus. So it makes sense as Judas's perspective that Jesus would feel that too. Jesus would want to get out. But most of the time, Jesus actually is seemingly happy about the large crowds. He even feels when the one woman touches the hem of his cloak because there's too many people around him. He feels that power leave him. And so,
One thing is that's also interesting too, is in this temple scene, Judas is watching what's happening. And that is the moment where Judas decides to betray Jesus. What Jesus had done in the temple. I believe that's also in the 2000 verse. This is a catalyst for why he goes to betray Jesus. Something I never really thought about reading the scriptures. But so this is kind of this act of drawing massive attention to himself, being not necessarily violent but destructive, I guess. Is what sort of sets Judas off to betray him.
Does anyone know what the catalyst is in scriptures? At least in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It's the anointing. In the scriptures, it's Jesus being anointed by the oil that is the catalyst for Judas. Which is very interesting. It really poses a different Judas. What is the reason for him doing this? Just an interesting note that they never actually present Jesus healing anyone. It's just, again, that perspective of the human Jesus. The other really interesting thing is that both in this scene and in the scene where Jesus is being accused, if you look close enough, you can see his disciples there. Particularly Mary is the most noticeable for me, but Mary is one of those in need of healing. And she's also one of the ones that crucify Christ. It's one of those things that I think, whether they meant to or not, I think they meant to. It's actually telling us a lot about ourselves. we are the ones sick in need of healing, and we are the ones that put Christ there.
Yeah, if this was if done on a stage production, there would be an ensemble cast, and the ensemble would play several different characters. So
the ones that would be running the temple,
the ones in the temple, they would play the disciples. The disciples would also play the crowd that crucifies or demands for Jesus to be crucified. So kind of these myriad roles throughout the entire musical.
Yeah, let's jump over to Gethsemane. Okay.